Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening. I was almost going to do NPR tonight. I'll let Colton tell you all about that. This is Fade to Black. How you doing? Today is Tuesday, September 9th, 2025. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Let's do this, man. Yeah. Where do I start? Well, let's start with this week on Fade to Black. Last night, Captain Leo Walton was here talking about ancient pyramid energy, and it was an amazing conversation. Tonight, Coltan Scrivner is with us, PhD. He's got a new book coming out. We're going to be talking about, well, I've called this show Craving the Creepy. Yeah, because it's all about me. Tomorrow night, Ryan Bledsoe is here, and first time Ryan has been on the show after all of these years. I'm really close with Ryan and his family, and and his father's been on the show many times. But tomorrow night, Ryan Bledsoe is here, and we're going to be talking about himself, the paranormal world that the Bledsoe family lives in, little UFOs, little ET, little paranormal and supernatural, all of that stuff tomorrow night with Ryan Bledsoe. And then Thursday night, we have no show. We are off air. I have to head out of town for TV production. Yes, I am shooting beyond belief this weekend. I do have 6 events coming up in 2026 in addition to everything else that I do, starting with the Conscious Life Expo, which is February 20th through the 23rd at the LAX Hilton right here in Los Angeles, California. Right after that is the Contact Modalities Expo. This is May 1st through the 3rd in Delavan, Wisconsin at Delavan Lake. I come back from that for Contact in the Desert, May 28th through June 1st, and tickets are on sale this Thanksgiving Day. I then head south to Peru for the Inca Celebration of the Sun with Brian Forrester. That takes place June 23rd through July 1st, 2026. I come back from that, change the underwear out of my luggage, and head over to the UK for the Monty Python tour of Scotland. That's the one you're not going to want to miss, kids. Right there, August 1st through the 9th, 2026. I come back from that, change the underwear out of my luggage, and head back to Peru. And this time it's Peru and Easter Island with Brian Forrester. And that is November of 2026. So, yeah, busy year next year. It's busy here all the time. I do want to say a couple of things. And first, I want to mention this morning we had our 3rd UFO hearing with Congress on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Started early. It was an amazing, I've got to say, I wasn't expecting that. UFOs, aliens, and ET being discussed in Washington, D.C. like that in that capacity was absolutely amazing. There's lots to unpack from that. And I got to say, there were many moments where I went, you're kidding me. You're kidding me. Wow, you're kidding me. It was really that good. Lots to unpack, and we'll be talking about that in the days and weeks ahead. And next, really quick, excuse me, I want to mention the universe. Never mess with the universe. All right. So today's Tuesday. Over the weekend, it was Sunday. I rode my Harley all weekend. And I was out with some friends, and we stopped by the Harley dealership to pick up some stuff and do some things as we were out riding around. And I started to talk about my friends back in Indianapolis, Jerry Reescamp, my friend and drummer, who passed away last year, and I've spoken about him a lot on the show. But I talked about his wife, Melissa, and probably spent a good solid 10 minutes talking about her, and that was that. All right, okay, but I haven't talked to Melissa probably in about a year, but and that was on Sunday. 10 minutes ago, right before showtime, I get a text from Melissa, and the text says, "Hey man, thinking about you." I was like, what? How does like that? And it's 10 minutes to showtime. I've got to get ready for the show. I just finished sound check with Coltan, and I've got stuff to do. I've got coffee to make. I'm calling Melissa. So I did 10 minutes ago. And I called her. I said, "Hey, I'm going live on the air, but I got to tell you, I was talking about you the other day." And you texted me right now. There is no way I wasn't going to call. That is the universe. It is strange how it works that way. And tonight I've got Coltan Scrivner on the show, PhD. I'm going to ask him about that. I want to ask him how our brains can be that entangled with somebody that things like that happen, and who pays attention to that and who doesn't. I think that's a good question for Coltan, because tonight we are going to dive into the morbid curiosity and why we humans crave this stuff, right? The macabre, the creepy. He's a psychologist. He's a horror entertainment producer. He is the world's leading expert on the science behind morbid curiosity and the appeal of frightening entertainment. Perfect show for me. How many times do I have to bring up this subject on the show for you to understand where my head is at? Well, we're going to be doing all of that. He is the executive director of Nightmare in the Ozarks Film Festival and the Eureka Springs Zombie Crawl, one of the largest gatherings of zombies in the world. I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, Coltan Scrivner. Coltan, what's going on, man?
Hey, Jimmy. Good to be here.
It's a strange world, man. It's a strange world. It's a strange world. You know why it's strange? We got people like you promoting it.
Yeah. You have to promote the strange in the world sometimes. That's the good stuff.
Oh, okay. Before we get into the show, we have to do the first time guest disclaimer. Okay. Which is this, and we have to do it so we can actually do the show. Coltan, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends, and where the conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, it ends. But we're going to end as friends. Now you have to accept so we can move forward.
Accept sounds good.
All right, man. That was easy. We were talking before the show, and my audience knows what I'm going to say before I'm going to say it. Right? They're in my head, and that's why they are here. It's just, a couple of people talking, and hopefully I'm going to learn something. But they also know, seeing you come on the show, they're like, "Oh, here we go. Jimmy's favorite thing to talk about." Well, it's not just me, is it? We've got this thing when it comes to this desire, and I don't think most of us even talk about it, but we know it's there.
Yeah, I had trouble coming up with the term for this when I started researching it, right? Because I had these different things that I saw connections between, right? People like horror movies, the Romans liked the gladiators in the Colosseum, and people love true crime and ghosts. And I at some point in researching all of this, I just said, well, this kind of sounds like people are morbidly curious, and that's kind of the term I stuck with and tied these things together in really interesting ways.
I'm going to reveal something to you, Doctor. Okay? I've never said this on the air. Okay? I went through a bad fixation of African wildlife drinking from a stream and getting surprised.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
I mean, and this is years. It's not too recent, but what gives with that? Why would anybody want to see? I don't know. Is it okay? Is there a flip side to this? And then we'll get into it really deeply. Is there the hope of maybe escape? Right? Is there, you know what I mean? That maybe
Yeah.
they're going to get away once they go in that room, right? Maybe they're going to come out of the woods alive.
Yeah.
Is it that?
Well, I think it's we're super attuned to things around us that are dangerous, right? That could be a conspiracy, that could be a predator, it could be a killer, it could be a potential like alien or ghost or monster, other kind of thing that maybe we think we believe in, but maybe we're not sure. And so when we see, portrayals of that on TV or in a book or a podcast or whatever it might be, I mean, we pay close attention to it, even if we're not trying to, right? We're kind of sucked into it. As soon as we get a signal that something's going to tell us about something threatening, we fixate on it. We can't help it.
One of the most popular parts of some of those history museums is the room full of torture devices. It's like, what? You really want to see a coffin with spikes in it? You want to see some kind of table that people were stretched on? Yeah, I kind of do. Let's go in. It is absolutely fascinating, and I don't even think anybody's really immune to it.
No, I
There's
don't
got to
think
be
so.
something. Yeah, it's there's something in our DNA.
Yeah, people have tendencies just like anything else, right? So you can be more or less extroverted, but there aren't people who just don't talk to anyone, right? You can be more or less, of anything. You can be more or less morbidly curious, but everyone has a little bit of it. Some people just engage with it a little more than others.
There is, I think that there's another part to this too as well, where you see people. I don't want to, man. I don't want to offend anybody. They and it's a free country. Do your thing, right? Whatever your bliss is. But there are some people that do take it to the next level, where you'll walk into their house and they'll have an Ed Gain bust on the fireplace, right? And it's something like that, and then you bring it up and you find out that they've got a pen pal that's a serial killer. You know what I mean? That actually do take it to the next level.
Yeah, this comes up a lot when people ask me about true crime and, is it good for you? Is it bad for you? Does it matter? And inevitably people bring up then, well, what about women who fall in love with serial killers, right? Or go visit them in prison or marry them? Why would they do this? And I think it really is, we can get into this later, but kind of just an extension of something that's perfectly normal, right? This curiosity about people who are dangerous and kind of understanding them. And it's really just in the same way that a pathology is just an extreme version of a behavior of a mental state. You can have these extreme versions of morbid curiosity where it's affecting your life in ways that are a little bizarre.
Yeah, when the Night Stalker got married, I was like, no, right? And I remember seeing a couple of interviews with him. Well, I got to know him. No, you didn't, right?
Yeah.
What is going on? And I don't know if it's that's childhood issues or something else, or that maybe it's perfectly okay that people are just attracted to what they're attracted to, and I don't know. I'm just torn when I think about things like that.
Yeah, I mean, the basic thing that's going on there, like, so why do we love true crime, right? And in general, why do we watch a true crime show?
Tell me, doctor, because I got it bad.
Well, do you want to do the deep dive now, or the very basic answer now?
It's gotten to the point where, for me personally, and I am just an example of what's going on out there.
Yeah,
I think I've run to the end of the internet when it comes to true crime.
Yeah, you've seen it all, right?
It's really that bad. And with television these days and the streaming services, they recognize that too.
Yeah.
Every streaming platform has got a new series every day, some 3-part true crime series that is excellent, right? They are providing that people are watching this stuff, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, well, so let's dig into that. So what is it, right? Why do they know obviously that people are going to consume it, right? But they don't know why usually. They don't know why people love true crime. They just know that if I make a true crime show, it's going to get 100 million watches on Netflix in a week, right? So let me do the very simple deep dive. So let's go back, let's say 300,000 years ago, right? So our ancestors, going back to our ancestors.
The
Okay?
beginning of
Yeah, early
okay.
humans, very early humans. Yeah.
Okay.
Go back to them. So when humans first kind of emerged on the scene here, we had social groups that were a lot like other primates. So we had a big, strong, like alpha male that would kind of domineer the group, right? That's how chimps are today. It's how, as far as we can tell, based on bone structure and other kinds of things, that's how humans kind of were as well a long time ago. Then something weird happened. Humans began to talk and string together words and create language. Well, language allows you to work with other people to achieve some kind of goal, right? So you're not by yourself doing things. Now you're actually communicating with people, coming up with plans, conspiring, right? And what ended up happening is that the biggest threat that humans faced for a while was like another big, angry, sort of domineering, reactively aggressive male, right? That was the dangerous person in the group, and that's who kind of got to have their way. Well, once we developed language, now you've got people who can sit back and kind of plan and plot and premeditate different kinds of aggression towards you. So it wasn't just outward, right? It was kind of hidden. And that's exactly what you see in serial killers. You have this new, to humans, this was kind of a new danger to them. Like now, I can tell if Jimmy over here is going to hurt me. He's big and he's strong and he's yelling and he's angry. But now I've got someone over here who's quiet, who is planning, who's plotting, who's deceiving me or conspiring. And so we had to learn to be kind of curious. We had to evolve to be kind of curious about people who, that's what you always hear on these true crime shows, right? I would have never imagined that he would have done this. I could have never imagined that, I was his neighbor and I just had no idea. Or I was his mother and I had no idea. So you get these sort of deceptive murderers, right? That was like a new thing that emerged with language and planning and forethought. And so now humans have to evolve to kind of be curious about that, to learn about those kinds of people, to keep them out of the social group. And of course, that's the very plot of true crime, right? I mean, that's what true crime podcasts talk about. It's what TV shows talk about. They talk about the killer a lot, not because they're glorifying the killer, but because that's what's interesting to us, right? This person's background and like, how could we, what did we miss, right? Like, how did we not see this? How did we not see this coming from this person? So that's what intrigues us the most.
That's a non-trivial point, by the way. That's a huge point. That's really big.
Yeah, I think it's it's a way that I've not seen it discussed before with true crime, right? And they often, like with true crime, there's a lot of people get angry that sometimes the killer is focused on a lot, like it goes into their childhood and their background and their thinking. But that's exactly the kind of thing you need to understand if you want to avoid people like that, right? You need to understand who they are as a person and why they did what they did, and how you could spot someone who might be like them, and in your life. And even though it's increasingly rare that you're going to run into a serial killer, those are still the things that intrigue us because it's rare, right? Because we don't have access to it all the time. That's what we're curious about, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a human, or I would even say it's just animal nature, to be curious about the dangers around us.
I something came out of my mouth a couple of years ago, and I've kind of stuck to it since then. And what I said was, this is a live show. I don't have questions in front of me. I don't, you know what I mean? Okay. So, and I've always broadcast that way. So what ends up happening a lot of, because it's pure improv, and what happens. But sometimes I let go of a nugget, right? I'm like, oh, that was pretty good. And one of the things that I said was, I said, what is the greatest invention of mankind? And my guess, well, I don't know what. I said, the story.
Sure.
The story, which is exactly what you're saying right there. I mean, that was like the turning. As soon as we could vocalize, the story evolved out of that. And it could be a true story, It could be the news of the day, right? It's just the story. It's dialogue. But that is probably our most important invention, and it's what we pay most attention to today. Hence your point. It's non-trivial. It's a big deal.
It's also what we learn from easiest, right? So again, if you think about, okay, how does every other animal learn something? Well, they learn something in a first-person perspective. They learn it because they experienced it, right? They didn't hear about it from another animal. They didn't read about it in a book. They didn't watch it on a TV show. So their mind, like their brains, the only way their brains work is to learn something by experiencing it, by seeing it themselves, hearing it themselves, feeling it themselves. Now, humans obviously do that really well too. We can still learn by reading a list of facts, but we actually don't learn very well by reading a list of facts. That's why it's not fun to read a dictionary. It's not fun to just sit down and read an encyclopedia, right? It's not fun to sit down and just read a list of information. What is fun and the way we do learn well is we learn well in stories, right? And so when somebody puts something like that into a really compelling narrative, in a podcast or in a TV show, we not only are like entertained by it because they're good storytellers, but we actually learn better that way because our minds also have those mechanisms that are really good at learning from first-person perspectives. And a good story is told in a first-person perspective.
Now I'm going to ask you something direct.
Okay.
Watching another human shoot another human in any form causes a reaction.
Sure.
Seeing another human bash a zombie in the head with a spiked baseball bat is okay.
Yeah.
It is okay to mow down a crowd of 1,000 zombies with a 50 caliber machine gun, right? That's okay.
Yeah.
Where did we suddenly set these kind of rules?
Well, I mean, in some, I don't know if you ever watched like The Walking Dead, for example. So there's plenty of zombie movies and TV shows where there's always a skeptic in the group who says, well, what if we could bring them back, right? What if we could bring the zombies back? What if it's just a sickness and we can give them a pill or whatever and bring them back, right? So those people actually do have this kind of visceral response to bashing the zombies because they still see them as human, right? They're a part of our group, right? But I mean, that's the difference. The zombies are a dangerous. We do the same thing with people who are not in our group, right? Like, so if we're at war with somebody, we're a little more okay with like having these like really terrible, violent interactions with them or having people do it on our behalf, right? So it's just a groupish thing. You see them as part of your group or not part of your group. One of your groups is broadly humans, and maybe another group is broadly zombies. And so if they're not humans anymore, I think a lot of things are fair game from people's moral perspective.
Is that Hollywood's fault?
No, it's not. It has nothing to do. Hollywood is mostly, I think, that's a big question in like psychology, right? Or do movies and does media kind of emulate life, or does life emulate movies, or is it a little of both? And it's probably a little bit of both, but something, it's like a chicken or egg. Like something had to come first, right? When we started telling stories, we were telling stories about the things we were experiencing and our tendencies we have to believe certain things or act a certain way. And it's still true, right? We're still telling the same kinds of stories because we're human and we have those tendencies. Now that can, over time, sure, you can kind of influence what people think a little bit with stories. But I think for the most part, like the stories we tell are, media is emulating nature rather than the other way around.
And fear. Let's discuss fear too. I'm going to get some basics on the ground here before we move forward. Yeah. Fear is a strange thing. And when I was a kid, I was probably most frightened with The Mummy. And the early versions, right?
Yeah,
the 1930s version.
Yeah.
Now, here I am terrified as a kid of something that I can outwalk.
Sure.
I don't even have to run, right?
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? But I was terrified. And it's the same thing. The fear is built in with that. Even with zombies, all you got to do is a brisk walk and you can outdo the zombie, but yet it's a totally terrifying thing. why is it that the fear part of it is something that we are so addicted to? The creepy and the macabre, yes, of course, but fear. Why do we like being scared?
Well, it's sort of. I don't think we don't like being scared all the time, right? You don't. Later tonight when you go to bed, you don't want to be laying there feeling afraid, right?
I'm afraid every night in bed, man.
Well, ideally, you probably wouldn't want to be afraid every night in bed. But there are times where we'll pay to be afraid, right? Or we'll pay to be afraid under certain circumstances. And I mean, what that is, your brain can recognize when you're safe and when you're not safe, right? It can recognize, hey, I'm sitting on my couch and I'm watching a scary movie. And the movie is tricking your brain in some sense, right? It's tricking the sort of those threat management areas of your brain. It's pulling the strings there. But there's another part of your brain that's saying, hey, we're sitting on a couch and you're eating popcorn and you're watching this movie, right? It's on the screen. And so I think what happens is our brain recognizes that sort of dual scenario. I'm afraid, but I'm safe. And so what that is that's a really good opportunity to learn something about fear, to learn something that's dangerous, right? Because you're not actually in danger. Like you're not actually, it's like when you go to the zoo, and you see a giant anaconda behind a plexiglass wall or a tiger, right? Or something. You're not really afraid when you're standing there looking at it, right? Now, if it jumps at you or scares you or something like that, but just looking at it, you're not afraid. Now, if you remove that plexiglass wall, you're
Different
immediately
story.
afraid. Yeah, very
Right.
different story, right? Even though you haven't actually changed anything visually. You've just removed a clear wall, right? But your brain instantly realizes, oh, well, now the thing can get me, right? I'm not protected anymore. So it goes from fascination and intrigue to just fear pretty fast.
And it sounds like there are different slices of the pie when it comes to fear or to the creepy or is genre the right word that I'm looking for? But different versions and different scales of all of this. Can you classify it that way?
Yeah, I guess you could, right? I mean, what would you say are the different kinds? You have like creepiness, right? Like feeling creeped out. That's one. You've got kind of just pure fear, right? What would be the others there?
Uh the love of okay.
Like
So
suspense, maybe like a suspenseful feeling, or
you have dead bodies. You have
oh, you
the
mean like different
afterlife.
kinds of dangers? Yeah,
Yeah. Blood, fear of blood. That people notice in
yeah,
film or books or movies or images that they
yeah,
gravitate to first, and maybe some other people wouldn't even notice. So they're in another right. They're
yeah. So
categories.
yeah, there's kind of different, in some of the research I've done, there are different sort of types of morbid curiosity. So different kinds of dangers you can be curious about and afraid of, right? So one of those we already talked about, which is sort of the minds of people who are dangerous. So the minds of like serial killers, the minds of people who are plotting, like conspiring against you. So an interest in conspiracy theories is super related to an interest in true crime, for example. Those are kind of coming off of the same mental mechanism. They're working on the same mental mechanism. People who are trying to deceive you and trying to harm you through deception. So that's kind of one kind, right? There's another kind that sounds like it would be the same, but it's actually a bit different. So that would be a curiosity or fear of violence, right? And the difference here is that the first group is kind of interested in, I guess, the preamble to that. They're interested in like, how do you get to the violence? The second group here, the violence group, is interested in the action itself. So this would be like people going to the Colosseum, the Romans, 80,000 Romans packing the Colosseum to watch gladiators fight it out. Or, in the modern day version, MMA or boxing or any other kind of violent sport, really. So that's your second kind there. Is just sort of like what happens in a violent act? Like what does a violent act look like? So you have the lead up, you have the violent action itself, and then you kind of have the aftermath. Like what does it mean to be subjected to violence after the fact, right? So that's the interest in or the curiosity about like blood or bodily injuries or people who like medical related autopsies and things. Those are all operating on that same kind of mechanism of bodily injuries or aftermath of violence. And then you kind of have this fourth one that feels like it's separate, but it does tie in a way. You kind of have people who are interested in the paranormal. And paranormal here I'm using super broadly. So anything that is difficult for you to directly perceive. So that could be aliens, that could be ghosts, that could be demons, that could be anything that could be dangerous.
Outside of the natural.
Outside of what you
reality.
see as like outside of what you can go and look at or go and touch, right?
Right.
And these are things that, for the same reason, like, so they're perceived as dangerous often because they're outside of your direct perception, right? So if you're imagining like, okay, if I see someone walking down an alley, right? And when that person sees me, they duck behind a garbage can. What am I instantly thinking about that person? What would you think about them? You're seeing someone walking, they see you, and they hide behind something. Why would they do that? Because they're trying to be deceptive, right? They're trying to harm you. They mean something bad, right? It's the same thing as you've got a lion walking along, and suddenly it crouches, right? What is it doing? Well, it's trying to be stealthy. Well, why is it trying to be stealthy? Because it wants to enact harm on something that it doesn't want to see it, right? So we have that same intuition about, let's say, ghosts, right? Why are ghosts often seen as bad, right? Why do we often just assume like, oh, the ghost is here, that's a bad thing, not a good thing? Why don't we just want to hang out with ghosts in our house, right? Well, because they're not making themselves available to us, like very available to us. And so why would they do that? Well, maybe they have bad intentions. Same thing with like people's perception of demons, of aliens. We don't often think of aliens as like these friendly aliens who are going to come hang out with us on Earth. Usually we see them initially as like potentially dangerous, right? Because they're powerful. They're powerful enough to have a technology that can evade our detection. And not only can it, but they do try to evade our detection. So they must have something to hide. So we have all these same, again, it goes back to this human ability for language and trying now to understand people and things that are deceiving us or trying to deceive us. It's all about people who are, or things that are trying to sneak up on us and kind of get an upper hand on us.
I didn't used to, does it come with maturity? Because I didn't used to be this way. I've always liked documentaries. I've always loved nonfiction, biographical stuff and historical stuff and history and politics. Yeah, I enjoy all of that to this day. But I never had this thing about true crime and courtroom drama and what is going on inside of this person's head that separates them from me. Yeah. I never had that before. Now all I want to do is get inside somebody's head and try to understand what makes them them. And I'll make one point. You're a doctor. I'm on the couch. Let me say something, Doc, which is this. I think all of us think crazy shit. Sure. We just don't do it. Right? There's a difference.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
We've all thought about robbing a bank. We just don't do it. Right? We just don't do it. And and I think that's okay. I think that is totally normal. But some people do.
Yeah.
So and I really enjoy that part of it, getting into the id and getting into somebody, what makes somebody who they are. But I was never like this before. I don't know why I have grown into this. Yeah. Probably 10 years ago, maybe, like right in there.
Did anything change 10 years ago?
Yeah, I am on the couch. Ooh, this is good.
I'm not a clinical psychologist. I'm not a therapist at all. But
you play one on TV, and
I play one on TV. Yeah.
I'm not so sure because I have thought about this. Yeah. And that's why I brought up, is it just maturity? Is it just age where you start to get into another stage of your life and you start thinking about why people are who they are? And
I think
you don't think about that when you're a kid. You don't give a crap.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think when you're a kid, everything is kind of new to you, right? So all these dangerous things like monsters and aliens and ghosts, these are all kind of new. So you have to learn before you can start thinking about why someone is doing something. You have to kind of have a catalog of what all the possible things are, right? So everything is kind of new to you. It's easy to scare a kid because there's a lot of things they don't know about, a lot of things they haven't seen. It's why they're more afraid of the world. I guess, when you're an adult, you do kind of you start working at, a real job, and you kind of see like how people can be, right? Like how they can behave. You start watching the news more, listening to the what happens around you, and you see what people are really capable of, right? These are things that you don't really pay attention to as a kid. You're not watching the news. You're not really like working at a job with people and seeing how they behave in that kind of way. So yeah, I think you can kind of grow into it, because now maybe your experience, that's kind of the new threat for you, is other people being deceptive, other people being having bad intentions, right? When you're a kid, I don't think you really think about that. People kind of treat kids differently, right? They're not, I mean, frankly, they're nicer to kids usually, right? And when you're an adult, people treat you like an adult, which sometimes means that they're mean to you, or they, have bad intentions for you. And I think you learn to see that. And then of course, one response to that is to then become curious, like, how could these people do this? Or why would they do this? What would make them do this?
Some people have that look in their eye, that just absolute disconnection of
like the
empathy.
dead.
Yeah. I was out with friends a few months ago, and I live in LA, but I was up in Chicago hosting a conference. And one night, this is in Wisconsin, across the border from Illinois, and we're out in the wilderness. And so one night after the conference, we walk out by the lake, and this giant, beautiful, majestic bald eagle comes flying in. And if you've ever seen one, they're humongous birds.
They are.
And it's full of grace. Anyway, landed in the tree above us, 10 yards. I've got pictures right there. All right. Now here's the trippy thing. This bird was looking at us. This bird was looking at us, looking at him. Right? It's just so buff. But his eyes. And you know what? He didn't give a crap.
Yeah, he was not afraid.
No. And here we are. We're the apex predator, right? You know what I mean? No. So that's my question. Are they thinking those thoughts too?
Well,
do animals think that? Well, you said the deception, you know what I mean? Are animals jumping into this morbid curiosity? Is he thinking, you know what? I could just rip your throat out.
He's probably thinking, do you have any small kids around I can grab and run off with? That's probably what he's thinking.
Exactly. Well, to my point. Yeah, to my point.
Yeah, I think animals are more what would you say? I guess just raw and calculating in their behavior, right? I mean, it's impossible to say, right? I can't get inside of another animal's head because it can't tell me something, right? That's the whole thing, as you mentioned, about storytelling and language. That is kind of the thing that makes us unique, and it's hard to study an animal and what their mind is like, because they can't tell you, right? But yeah, animals and their behaviors seem to be a bit more maybe like just rational, ruthless. I mean, we learned this in studies with chimpanzees, right? So there's this whole thing about humans being, the Homo economicus, like we're rational apes, right? We're the rational ape. We always thought of ourselves as rational apes. Economists in particular saw humans as like these rational primates. And then when we started doing psychology studies more with humans and with chimps and with other primates, we realized that we had it a little bit backwards. Actually, chimpanzees are like the very rational primate. So chimpanzees are super just calculating, rational, like what you would imagine Homo economicus to be. Humans are emotional, and we have whims, and we have, and that's not to say that chimpanzees don't have personalities or tendencies or these other things, but in their behaviors, they're very just calculating, right? Almost like a robot.
Do they understand trauma and pain?
Sure. I mean, yeah, I would say that more so than other animals, a chimpanzee seems to be more human-like, right? That's not to say that a chimpanzee is a robot or it can't experience, complex feelings or anything. Just that, when they make a decision, it's very calculating in the way that economists imagine humans make decisions, like the rational decisions they make. That's how chimpanzees and probably other animals kind of are. So the eagle was probably looking at you and just assessing what are called affordances. So is this guy going to hurt me, Or can
Right.
I hurt him? Does he have food? Or am I his? Like he was making these like real simple just calculations based on what you were doing, right? So his thinking was kind of calculated, like you were talking about those people who have kind of the dead eyes, the psychopathic sort of stare. That's kind of what that is. I mean, psychopaths are known for being cold and calculating and in some ways, I guess, very like just rational in that they are just making calculations, right? And nothing else kind of adds in. What benefits me? That's the thing I need to do, right? And that's what animals do. That's what a lot of animals do.
And sometimes we just don't know.
Sure.
I'll give you. You look at Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
He used to take out my trash. What a nice
Yeah.
guy. You know what
But
I mean?
he seemed very normal. That was his
Yeah,
thing,
he's
right? Like
totally
he seemed very normal.
That's the scary part. You see Jeffrey Dahmer, and you're like, why did it take so long? You know?
Yeah. You see the Night Stalker, and you're like, yeah, that guy probably killed a bunch of people, right?
Okay, let's talk about Fear in the Night Stalker for a second. And
Okay.
why this fear thing. I lived through that summer with the Night Stalker running around LA. And I've got to tell you, that was I'm going to use a bad word. That was some scary shit.
Oh,
Everybody in LA was terrified. I was terrified. I was 21, man. I was a 21-year-old strapping young man. I was scared of nothing.
Yeah, but if somebody gets the jump on you, right?
I was terrified that summer. I was terrified. We were all and the killings started getting close to our city. They got up into Monrovia, the next city over. I lived in Pasadena, and the LA was gripped in fear.
Yeah.
It was a crazy thing emotionally to go through, and I did personally. It was. I try to describe it to people today that weren't part of it. You can see a documentary and everything, but it's a whole nother thing when you're picking up the paper every day, wondering what happens, next.
Yeah.
What's going on tomorrow. It was that kind of fear. It was crazy.
Yeah, again, it's in his name or in his nickname, right? The Night Stalker. He's not the night fighter. He's not a guy that comes up to you and then challenges you to a boxing match. That would be a different kind of thing, right?
And then what did he do? What did he do, Colton? He puts the pentagram on his palm. You remember that? It was like, it was real.
Yeah. Again, there are a lot of things. I think uncertainty scares people too. And people like that are just full of uncertainty. They're hard to predict, right? It's hard to predict what they're going to do.
What scares you?
Me? I don't know.
Have to think about it.
I don't
think about it. So a lot.
Well, that's not to say. Look. If I'm like in a situation, of course there are situations that are scary, right? But I don't think anything. There's nothing that I just like sit around and sort of fear, or worry about, or I'm anxious about. There's not anything like that. There's plenty of times where I would be afraid, right? Like if I lived in LA when the Night Stalker was around and I had to walk home at night, I'd be afraid to do that, right? But that's not something I sit around and think about. Like where I live, I'm not afraid to walk around at night, or I'm not afraid someone's gonna, do something violent. So there aren't things in my life that I'm just on a day-to-day basis that I'm afraid of, right? That doesn't mean something can't happen tomorrow that changes that, right? Like maybe I'm in a car wreck tomorrow and I'm fine, but now maybe driving cars is going to be a little scarier at first, right?
Yeah, and you can't, that stuff that's not really in your control. And I do. I'm kind of like The Walking Dead or The Last of Us. I've built my house into a fortress, right? No, I'm serious. I'm serious.
Yeah.
And I need that.
Yeah.
Right. I need that. Nobody can pierce. I have 3 levels of perimeter fencing, right? So if they get to one and that alarm goes off, they get to the next, by the time they get to the 3rd one, I'm armed to the teeth, and I'm okay. I'm fine.
Yeah.
But it's strange that I've gotten to that point. So let's flip this. Let's flip this over. I understand that. I totally get it. Some things are out of your control. So I just try to put them in my control the best that I can do.
Right.
But what's a scary horror movie?
To me, or just in
Yeah,
general?
to you.
I don't know. I don't really get that scared of horror. I mean, I've watched a lot. I'm sure you have maybe too. I don't know. I don't really like get truly afraid where, I watch, sure I did when I was younger. You watch a movie and then it's like, man, I don't want to go to sleep right now, or I don't want to walk home, or I don't want to, go into this dark room. I don't know if there's any of those out like that. I mean, are there any for you? I don't know.
Well, okay, I could throw I was different when I was a kid.
Okay.
Um, Horror movies to me were always kind of funny.
Yeah.
And I never understood why people got so scared. I remember walking Pet Cemetery, right? And I got halfway through the movie, I was like, man, this, and people are just freaking out and screaming. And after the movie, that was the best horror movie ever. I was like, that was the most ridiculous thing I have ever seen. So there's that. But yet, Nightmare on Elm Street messed with me.
Yeah, there's something about when you're asleep, you're completely helpless, right? There's nothing you can do. You don't know if something's going to get you, and that's in human nature to be a bit of cautious when you're sleeping, because that's when you're most vulnerable, right? And so yeah, a story about someone who hunts you in your sleep. I mean, that's probably going to be at the top of, like, if you're going to make a scary story, tell a scary story about someone who kills you in your sleep, right? Because not only are you vulnerable, but in the case of Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy's got control in the dream world. He's in your dreams too, and he's got control in there. I think that is definitely one of the most terrifying, like, horror concepts, like, really well done.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. You know what I did when I was a kid? I was like 21. A friend of mine worked at the shopping mall, and I'm there, and I'm by the movie theater, and there was a giant life-size cardboard cutout of Freddy Krueger, right?
Okay.
With the claw. And I said, man, you got to get that for me. So about a week later, that thing was in my living room. I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So I put it in my bathroom, all the way in the back next to the toilet against the wall. Lights are out. And I would sit in the living room I couldn't wait for somebody to go, hey, where's the bathroom? It's right there, bro. And man, it was just, oh man, 10 for 10 every single time. Light comes on, person bounces out of the bathroom screaming backwards into the hallway and falls on the floor. It was awesome. Back to the point, that morbid curiosity. How far are they going to fall in the hallway?
Yeah, but they're safe, right? Like, you didn't put an actual
nobody's getting
dangerous.
Hurt.
Yeah, you didn't put a real dangerous killer in your bathroom. That wouldn't have been funny. That would have been just bad, right? But because because you're putting them in a safe place, like, fine to scare them, right? They're going to be
big time fun. Oh man, big time.
I have.
I'm sorry. I wanted to. Okay, second point I wanted to bring up. There's Nightmare on Elm Street. And then you have something like, to me, one of the greatest films ever made, and it happens to be classified as horror, but The Shining.
Oh yeah.
And and again, just a psychological screwing of the mind all the way through what's going on, but purely watching somebody, dive into some deep, unescapable psychosis.
Well, I think that's what it is, right? You're trapped, right? So he's trapped at the hotel. His family is trapped at the hotel. And it's just the same thing as Nightmare on Elm Street. You're trapped in your dream, or you're trapped asleep, right? It's all about being helpless. I mean, I've done, like, one of the recent research projects I worked on was defining horror. So how do you what
makes a film a horror film? Like in Nightmare on Elm Street, is it a classically defined horror film, or is it called horror because they can't really stick it somewhere?
Yeah. Well, what do you think? How would you define it, right? How would you, if I said, Jimmy, what is a horror film?
Horror film to me is involving a monster of some kind, human or otherwise, that is killing people for no reason. That's
good.
that's a horror film. So that's a broad classification, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Well, horror is broad, right? There's a lot of different things that are kind of lumped in, which is why it's difficult to define.
Somebody's got to die. Somebody's got to die. Otherwise, it's not a horror film.
It's a drama. Otherwise,
yeah, it's
yeah. Well, that's not entirely wrong, right? I think that's part of the definition I kind of landed on. So, when you ask people what makes a horror film, a lot of people will say, well, if it's scary, it's a horror film, right? If it scares you. And that's kind of a tricky thing, right? Because it's like, well, if I'm not scared of any movie, does that mean there are no horror films? That's not what that means, right? That's crazy to say that. Or if I'm scared of it and you're not, or I'm scared of it today but not in a week. I mean, that doesn't change what the film is, right? And so some people will say, well, it's what the director intends for it to do. If the director intends for it to be scary, then it's a horror film. And they kind of have the same problem. Like, well, maybe it works on some people and not on others, and that just feels too flimsy, right? And so I started thinking about it. So I was trained as a biologist. So I call myself a psychologist because I study people and the way they think. And but really, I was trained as a biologist. I think about humans as animals, right? And it kind of shows up in my work, and kind of even in our discussion here, we bring up animals a lot. And so I started thinking, okay, what is like the animal story here? What's going on in a horror story? And it seems to me that what's going on is, and this taps into something that you'd mentioned, that you said there's a monster and they're hunting people and they have to be killed sort of indiscriminately or without cause or without reason, really, sometimes. And I think that's pretty close to what I landed on, which was, in a horror story, you have a really powerful, formidable villain, and you have a really vulnerable protagonist. And that's a unique structure that doesn't show up in other genres. You don't see that in action films. In action films, you see formidable villain, formidable hero, right? So you have really strong hero, really strong villain. In thrillers, you see equally matched villain and protagonist. That's why you get the back and forth. That's what makes it thrilling, right? Same thing with like spy films or other things like sort of suspenseful films. In horror films, it's unique in that you almost always have a really vulnerable protagonist. Usually it's like a normal person. And then you have a really powerful antagonist. And let me tell you I think what sort of, for me, was the smoking gun here. I thought, okay, maybe it's really just about, like you said, having a powerful monster that kills indiscriminately. That was kind of where I was initially too. And then I thought, well, what about the movie Predator? Have you seen the movie Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
One of my favorites.
Okay, yes. Great movie. I love the movie Predator. And I love it in part because Predator does better than most movies. Maybe Alien is the other comparable one. It does the horror villain, the horror monster, the ultimate predator. I mean, he's literally called Predator.
Right.
It does it perfectly, right? It creates the perfect predator. Alien with the xenomorphs, very close as well. Like, the xenomorph is like this crafted, perfect hunting machine, right? And I thought, okay, what is the difference between Predator and even Alien, I guess? But let's think about Predator. Okay, it doesn't really feel like a horror movie, right? At least to me, it doesn't. When I watch it, I don't feel like, it doesn't feel the way that Nightmare on Elm Street feels. It doesn't feel the way that Friday the 13th feels. It doesn't feel the way that The Shining feels, even. There's something different. Well, what's different is the Predator is kind of the ultimate predator. He is, the ultimate killing machine, but he's also up against a group of like Army Green Beret commandos led by Arnold Schwarzenegger. And so there's somewhat of an even matchup there, because the commandos are a group. They have, allies. They have weapons that increase their strength, increase their formidability. They're tactical. It makes it more like an action film, right? And is often classified as a sci-fi action film.
But I also had empathy for the Predator too, as well. It's really weird.
Why is that?
He looked like he had dreadlocks and smoked pot.
He's just a hippie. He's a hippie alien, right?
But no, what I mean, he looked kind of hip. He looked kind of cool, and I felt like he was just misunderstood, man.
He's just he was a misunderstood monster.
Yeah, and it might have been some of the appeal for a lot of people with Predator, that he had a different kind of vibe. Also, though, the invisibility thing, which for me pulled it out of horror and maybe leaned harder into sci-fi.
Yeah,
And same thing with Alien. And I want to get back to your point. I want you to make your point. But Alien was a horror film disguised as a sci-fi film.
I agree. Yeah. Well, and you can have, of course, more than one genre there. You could call it a horror sci-fi or whatever, right?
Which is what
but I think, but its core element, you're right, was horror. And the reason it was horror, at least with the first one, was that you had this new, again, like perfectly crafted predator that was just wreaking havoc on a group of people, but not a group of like Green Beret army commandos, with full arsenal of weaponry, right? And importantly, the humans were on like a foreign planet, even like they weren't even in their home planet. They were playing an away game, right? And they were playing against a pro league, and they were AAA, right? So yeah, I think it was just, there was an imbalance there, huge imbalance, at least in the first film, between the predator and the prey, right? And that's what made it feel like a horror movie. Whereas as Predator, great movie, but felt kind of like an action movie, an action sci-fi, as opposed to a horror sci-fi.
So they take it to the next level, and they come out with Alien versus Predator.
And they did, yeah, they figured it out.
Which was a pretty good movie.
It was a great sort of action-y sci-fi movie, because again, Alien and Predator pretty well matched, right?
And then why we're going to head to the break, and when we come back, I do want to jump into dreams a bit more. But why is it, man? I just had a brilliant. See, I had a nugget. It was getting ready to come out. It doesn't matter. Let's take our break. I'll think about it during the break. Let's do that now. I had something good. I hate it when that happens. Our guest tonight, Coltan Scrivner, is with us. His new book, which is coming out, let him talk about that when we come back. It is called Morbidly Curious. A Scientist Explains Why We Can't Look Away. We'll do all of that and much more. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Coltan, you stay right there. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Backley Tappy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut.
Jimmy Church, Gaia TV, Fade to Black, here at Machu Picchu with Brian Forster and Hidden Inca Tours. Amazing tour so far, Brian, but we're here to announce what we're going to do next year in 2026. What's going on?
Okay, November 2026, we're going to have our major tour of Peru and Bolivia, either a pre or post tour of Paracas and Nazca on the coast. And then after that, 6 days in Easter Island.
Bucket list, Easter Island. Come join Brian and I and his amazing team here at Hidden Inca Tours for Peru, Bolivia, and Easter Island. Signing out. Say goodbye, Brian.
Bye, gang.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. Welcome back. This is the NPR edition of Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, and tonight, author Coltan Scrivner is with us discussing his book, Morbidly Curious. A scientist explains why we can't look away. Now, back to Coltan. I had to do it. I had to get my yayas out. I had to do it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. I had to do it. One of these days, I used to, our guest, Coltan Scrivner, is now back with us. A few times over the years, this is a live show. And when you do live radio, which is all that I do, and even my TV shows, it is in my contract, no edits. Okay? No edits. What happens, happens. That's what people will see. And that keeps me on edge. Over the years, I had a couple of guests that could not do the show live. You can count them on one hand. I've probably done 5 shows like that where I taped it. And dude, it was NPR. Because I don't have that adrenaline. You know what I mean? You know, welcome back. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. And I would listen to it. That's not me. That's not me. All right. Okay. I remembered what the nugget I was going to drop. Okay. There is something else that is classically woven into a true horror film. The end of Act 3, the end of the film, where you have a hero that turns out not to be the hero. The monster survives. Right? That's always the hook, right? That's always a hook. And that's a weird thing in horror, where if you look at, the Joseph Campbell hero's journey classic formula that is woven into storytelling in that Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, hero's at home, leaves his home, he's got a thing, goes on his quest, comes back the hero. There's your Act 1, 2, and 3. You fill in the blanks. You've got a story and run with it. Horror doesn't operate that way. It's got its own version of storytelling, and the monster usually survives.
Yeah, I think what horror does really well sometimes is violates our expectations, right? It violates that like basic story that we're used to. Especially if they want to make money off of sequels. They'll just continue.
Right. Now, before we get to nightmares, we danced around, but we didn't get into it. So I want to do that. There's also the horror of religion, demons, right? And the devil and the occult and things that are unseen and that you can't control. That has also developed into its own thing. And in most cases, some of the most terrifying stuff and fear-filled that we can watch.
Yeah.
Or
well,
read, or read for that matter.
Yeah. I mean, it was, in many cases, explicitly developed kind of for that reason, right? To kind of scare people into behaving in a certain kind of way, right? So what do? You take a thing that is all powerful and pure evil and that you can't actually beat, and you make that kind of the punishment for not behaving the way that the group says you should behave.
Why was The Omen so scary? I saw it when it came out. I can't believe my parents did this to me. They took me to that movie, and I was probably 10. I'm guessing 10, 11, right in there. I've said this many times. I rode home in the back of the car, stunned, like I had an ice pick in the forehead. Like, I mean, I just, oof.
But what was terrifying about it to you?
Well, see, that's the point. It wasn't like there was bloodletting, and it was the thought of no. Hold on. That this is something real.
Yeah.
That's the terrifying part. That Texas Chainsaw Massacre or whatever. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's written in, that's made up stuff. That's made up to scare you. But the devil, that's real. That's a different thing. And I think that's probably the most terrifying part, is that something that you absolutely should fear.
Well, yeah, I think when people believe in something in a story, it becomes much more frightening, right? That's why a lot of these horror films, if they want to sort of add some flair, what do they do at the beginning? They say based on a true story. Even Texas Chainsaw does that, right?
The Amityville horror, right?
Based on true events, right? And what does that do? That immediately makes it for some group of people who believe that, makes it scarier, right? Makes it that much scarier, because this, not only is this a story, but this is a story that either did happen or could happen. And so that just, that makes it instantly more frightening.
Do you believe in ghosts?
I don't, which is interesting, because I actually love going ghost hunting. And I,
really?
I think it's a blast.
Wait. Are you scared of a haunted house? Will you go into a haunted house alone?
Like a traditionally, like, hey, this house is haunted.
Would you go into a haunted prison alone in the dark?
Yeah, I think I would. No, I would.
I don't think you would. I don't think you would. I wouldn't. I would.
I think, the thing that would concern me there would not be the ghost. It would be like, oh, someone is trying to get like a rise on. Someone's hiding, trying to like scare me. But no, I'm not. There's a famous haunted hotel here. I live like half a mile from it, if that. Called the Crescent Hotel. You can look it up. It's billed as America's most haunted hotel, right?
Yep.
I've done overnight investigations there. I've stayed in the most haunted room. Now, creepy stuff happened, right? I've gotten chills on ghost hunts. I've gotten, my body's responded like something has happened before, right? I feel afraid, right? I feel fear, right? But that's different than like consciously believing in a thing, right? I mean,
is that your biologist, black and white, pragmatic, chemistry, orthodox, university,
No, I think it's not that. It's not that. You would think it would be. It's not. So I'm, for example, super open to the idea of aliens and all sorts of crazy things about aliens. Very open to that. I'm not, and I'm open to the idea of ghosts. I think the issue for me is that in order for me to believe in like a traditional ghost, like the way a ghost story is normally told, right? If you go on a ghost tour, right? It would require like a pretty big shift in how I understand the world. Like it would just require a pretty large shift. In order for this one ghost to exist, my understanding of like how the universe works would have to shift quite a bit to accommodate that. With an alien, I mean, there's not a lot of shifting that has to go on. The universe is massive, right? Of course, like it seems to me that there probably would be other things out there, right?
To the infinite.
Yeah. Even, it's so massive. We don't really have a good understanding of what it means for the universe.
Big.
Yeah. Like we don't even understand what it means, right? And so for me then to believe in like, let's say an alien visiting here or even interacting with humans, doing something in ancient times, that doesn't require that much of a shift in like how I understand the world or the universe works, right? Because the universe is huge and it's old, very old. So yeah, I mean, there could be something that came and did things. Like I'm thinking as a human, right? Like if I knew this other planet existed and I could visit it, like and engage with the creatures there, and of course I would do that. So why would an alien not do that, right?
Well, how would you deal with that kind of paradigm shift, though, where you do get a confirmation and
Yeah. Like if
does
something
happen?
happened, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think that goes back to, you mentioned the word paradigm, right? So in science, there are these things called paradigm shifts where your whole understanding of the way the world works just immediately like changes, right? So that happened in the 30s with physics, right? And in the early part of the 19th century, everything was based on sort of Newtonian physics. And Newtonian physics works pretty well. You can predict a lot of things. You can do a lot of interesting things with Newtonian physics. And then quantum physics jumped onto the scene, and we're like, well, wait a minute. This is entirely different. Like this has completely changed how we even think about, the very substance of the world existing. Right? It completely changed it. The same thing happened with medicine. We used to think that there were different humors in the body that influenced sickness and how we felt, and then it's like we discover that, oh wait, that's not at all how this works. It completely changes it. So I think a good scientist is open to those, has to be open to those things, has to be open to the paradigm shift that change. I mean, if I had like good confirmation, of alien visitation doing something tomorrow, I think I'd be pretty open to that. It would be a paradigm shift on some things, but I'd be.
We had we had a congressional hearing today.
Yeah, I mean,
Did you watch any of that?
No, it's on NPR. I told you.
Oh, that's right. I mean,
no, I didn't, but I will go back and watch it. Because I'm fascinated by that stuff, and I find it certainly plausible, right? Like certainly plausible, probably likely. Just the extent to which is something we don't understand, right? Like seems likely to me. We just need to get a grasp on what all is there. Whereas with ghosts, I mean, there would have to not just be like, I've had experiences on ghost hunts where, I feel something brushing. I see something weird happens in the room. When I was staying in Michael's room at the Crescent, which is like their most haunted room in the most haunted hotel, right? There was some weird stuff that happened. I was in bed and like a dresser drawer just slowly slid, like very slowly slid open.
No,
like,
are you serious?
Yeah,
and
like
you
a middle one too.
Ghosts? You don't believe in
No,
ghosts?
I got up and I shut the drawer. I got back in bed and it did it again, right? Just like slow, and it was just one middle one, like one middle dresser drawer. It wasn't even,
Wow.
Wow. And I kind of played with the drawers, and they were all the same. There was no weird. And I've had other things. I mean, let me give you an example. So same room, actually. This was like 2 nights prior. So we went on this overnight paranormal investigation in the Crescent. So what they did is they kept all of the haunted rooms and the morgue in the basement, the old morgue, open. And we went with these paranormal investigators, and we got to do a ghost hunt like overnight. And we were in Michael's room, which is the room where the dresser drawer opened on me a few nights later. We were in Michael's room, and we had a little cat ball, like those little, you can buy them at like the dollar store, the little clear toy balls that have a red button on them. That lights up. Mm-hmm. And these 2 ghost hunters came in, and they pulled these 2 cat toys out, and I recognized them as cat toys. And they said, these are some of the best things you can do for ghosts because they're so simple. Like there's no funny business in this gadget, right? It's literally a cat made for toys. If you touch it, it lights up. That's as complex as it gets. And I said, okay, yeah, that actually, as a scientist, I'm thinking like, yeah, that actually is a great thing to study something. Yeah, you have a lot of control over that variable, right? And so they had 2 of these, and they turned them on. They put them on the bed. There were like 3 or 4 of us in the room. We were standing against the wall. The bed's kind of on the other side of the room. And we kind of pushed on the bed to see how much effort it would take to set these things off, right? It took quite a bit of like shaking. You couldn't just like stomp your foot or something. You kind of had to shake the duvet a little bit to make them go off. They both worked. They both went off when we would shake things, but not when we would move around or say something. So then they said, okay, we hear that there's the ghost of a man named Michael in this room. And Michael, there's 2 balls here. The one on the left, that'll be your yes answer. The one on the right, that'll be your no answer. So first we want to ask you, if you could just light it up for your answer. First we want to ask you, though, is your name really Michael? And there was like a 1 second beat, and then the yes ball lit up. Nobody moved. Nobody. Yeah. So that was one that, like, I had like chills immediately. I was like, oh my God, this is. And because my worldview is not like, oh, that was a ghost, right? But I didn't know what it was. I couldn't explain it. I didn't have a good, I can explain the dresser drawer in any number of crazy ways, or I can explain feeling. I couldn't explain that one. Like I was like, okay, you got me. I can't explain that one away. That was weird, right? Nothing else happened the whole night. That was like the only thing, and it was the very first thing. But it kind of set the tone. It was like, I'm super open to the world being way more complex than we understand, because it's always been that way, right? In science, it has always been that way, that as we discover more, we kind of just open up whole new worlds where everything is entirely new, right? We did that with quantum physics. We've done that with chemistry. We've done that with evolution. There's been multiple huge paradigm shifts that just completely change how we think about the world and kind of our place in it. And so I'm super open to those kinds of things. I think ghosts would take more evidence than a cat toy lighting up in a dresser drawer pulling out for me. Those are like little pieces of evidence, right? If you build up enough of those, you do get a paradigm shift. But for me, there would have to be something after death, and I would have to have good evidence that, like, there's a thing after death, and for some reason, some of those hang out here, some of them go somewhere else, some of them disappear. It just would require a little more effort, I think, for me.
I think, and I feel a sneeze coming on.
Yeah.
Here. Okay. I think they all are the same thing and may be related.
Okay. Well, real quick before you go on, I have a great conference I'm hosting for the first time next year. Don't let me forget to mention it to you, because it's about that.
Okay.
Go ahead, though.
Follow up this with that.
Yes. Finish your thought.
I believe that physics, all of it, it doesn't matter, is helping us understand the paranormal and the supernatural from a group of scientists who don't believe in anything cool, right? Right? They're not spiritual. They're not dead. They're not that, no. Everything is chemistry, right? Everything is an algorithm. Right? Okay. So, which is fine. We need that. Yeah. But what they are showing us today is exactly what you're talking about. They're proving to us, when you talk about and prove, and your research is into 11 dimensions and parallel worlds and the multiverse and entanglement, these crazy, that is crazier than any paranormal. That's
crazier than ghosts. That's crazier than ghosts.
Well, or is it ghosts?
Yeah.
Right? Is that what is bleeding into our reality? And the Bible called it angels and demons, and sometimes we call them aliens, or we call Bigfoot, whatever entities, whatever it may be, right? That is bleeding into our reality ever so briefly, and this interdimensional aspect to it, which is what physics is truly all about today. And entanglement is a very quantum computing runs on ghosts. And no, it does.
Yeah. It's the ghost in the machine, right? The ghost.
It is the ghost in the machine. When they go, well, we don't know how it works, but the particles are entangling, and the qubits with something else in another parallel dimension that is off in infinite numbers to our left and to our right. We don't know how that happens, but the calculations happen in the other.
The math says it does.
Right. Yeah. It's like, what are you talking about? But you don't believe in ghosts? What it's, and so that's my take. I think it's very fundamental. I think it's a very basic thing that we use so many different nouns and verbs and descriptors of this paranormal supernatural thing, when it's probably something very basic. Just one thing that we just haven't quite understood yet.
Yeah, I think so. A couple of points on that. One, I think that, if these things exist, it probably is something basic, probably something fundamental, right? which probably means they're connected, probably means there is some similar, like when humans 2,000 years ago are describing an alien, a fiery alien coming down, and humans 200 years ago are describing an alien, an angel 2,000 years
Right.
ago, an alien 200 years ago. And other people might be describing a demon or a ghost or whatever. Probably we're having some of these same experiences across time in different cultures, and we just have different languages, different understandings of the world and how to explain it, right? To a Jew 2,000 years ago, that's an angel or that's a demon, right? To someone living in Kansas in 2025, maybe that's an alien. That's their worldview, and that's how they make sense of the thing that they see, right? And the experience they have. So I agree. I actually agree with you there. I also think that in my experience, the scientists that are most open to insane ideas about the paranormal, and when I say insane, like in a good way, not in a bad way, but like the most radical ideas, are actually theoretical physicists, and just anecdotally. And I think the reason for that is because they see like how crazy the world they can measure with math and with precise instruments, like the world that they can physically measure doesn't really make any sense. Like, it's insane, right? It doesn't, what do you mean the universe is 14 billion years old? What do you mean it expands into nothing? That doesn't even make sense, right? It violates all intuition.
Yeah, faster than the speed of light.
Yeah, it violates all intuitions. And so, a theoretical physicist, their worldview, it doesn't take much. If you say that, aliens came down and had a ghost child with a demon. Well, maybe. The universe is 14 billion years old and expanding faster than the speed of light into nothing. That's also, like you said, just as crazy or even crazier, right? And so I think for them, it doesn't take a huge worldview shift because they understand how chaotic and sort of just uncertain and unknown the world is. We don't really understand it very well.
Yeah, it's such a good point because we lose sight of we like to point fingers at scientists a lot and blame them for things but a really good theoretical physicist, or even just a scientist in general, and you in your educational track certainly learn this. Anything, the craziest thought that you can have will eventually happen. That's it. Yeah. It may be a long time from now.
Yeah.
But everything is probabilities, right? Everything.
Yeah, the monkeys typing Shakespeare, right?
Everything that can happen. One of the Leonard Susskind, who's an amazing physicist, right? And he's just so good. Lenny said in this one presentation, and then we'll move on to nightmares. Lenny said, he goes, okay, everything eventually happens. He goes, you have a bowl of oatmeal on your kitchen counter. You move and knock it off of the counter. You watch it fall to the floor and shatter, oatmeal all over the place. And then while you are looking at it, all of the particles reverse themselves and the oatmeal reassembles and the bowl comes back together and it floats through the air and lands back on the countertop. That will happen one day. It may not be tomorrow, but it will eventually happen. And that is, and you can take that, right? You could metaphor that thing into nothingness, right? Just take that into anything. Well, but that's the world that we live in. So ghosts or whatever thing that we can label into the paranormal and the supernatural is entirely possible in the world of physics.
Yeah, again, the sort of famous metaphor there is if you give a monkey a typewriter and give it enough time, it'll write Shakespeare, right? And I always thought that was a strange metaphor because, well, that already happened, right? We did give a monkey a typewriter.
We did.
Shakespeare did exist. He was a primate that hammered out Hamlet, so that already happened.
It happened tonight when I started this show.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Oh, so don't let me forget. So this conference I'm hosting.
Yes.
It's called Obscuracon. Obscuracon. It's here in Eureka Springs. It'll be July. I think it's 24th, 25th is the weekend. It might be 25th, 26th, whatever that weekend is in July of 26. And so what we're doing is we're bringing together people who study UAPs, aliens, cryptids, ghosts, psychics, bringing all these people together. So some of the confirmed people we have like Nick Pope, so former head of the British government's UFO program. Yep. We have Lyle Blackburn. He's a cryptid hunter out of Texas. Yep. Mm-hmm. We've got Patty Negri from Ghost Adventures.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Yep.
She's amazing.
Yep. So those are some of our confirmed speakers. We have a few others who we're currently talking to. It's still a little early in the planning process, but we're doing this conference where we can bring all these people together to do exactly what you said, which is see if there are any commonalities among the things that you know a lot about. So you know a lot about aliens, you know a lot about cryptids, you know a lot about ghosts, you know a lot about psychics. Is there something here about those experiences that we see across each one of them?
Yeah, definitely connected. Do you have a website?
No, I mean this is still like super fresh. So we got the confirmed keynotes, but the web we do have a graphic. Oh, I have to send you the design. It's great. But
send us everything. We'll get it out there for you. Patty's amazing. Those three are really good friends of mine and good friends of the show. Yeah. And I've done a lot of things with them over the years. Not only stuff like this, but we've been out there doing stuff. I've been to I don't know how many countries with Nick Pope. And
he's great.
I
met him.
Patty is so cool.
Yeah,
and
she's
so completely out of her mind. and I say that with the most endearing love.
Yeah.
You need that. Yeah. She has got this open way of observing the world.
She does,
she's so much fun. She's funny too. She's great to hang out with, and she's amazing. So that sounds like a lot of fun. So send us that, and we'll get it out there for you. Yeah. I love that. So back to nightmares.
Yeah.
I love a good nightmare.
Okay. When you experience it, like when you have a good nightmare.
It is sport for me.
Okay.
It is so much so that I also know what to eat before I go to bed to instigate it.
What is
Italian food? Yeah, really good Italian. And I'm not, man.
I'm listening. Yeah.
Good plate of lasagna, hit the hay, nightmare. It's gonna happen. But I enjoy it. And I've talked to a lot of people that deal with dreams. Mm-hmm. How I personally, when I say sport, it's an Olympic sport for me, where I know how to prep myself. I know what to do before I go into the dream state. And if that's the zone I want to go into that night, I do it. I enjoy a good nightmare.
And you recognize it in the nightmare. You recognize I'm dreaming.
You know what?
Realize that? No.
This is what I want. This is how I know I've had a good nightmare. You can laugh if you want, man, but this is me having a good night, where I wake up at about 3 a.m. and I put my feet, I roll, and I go, whoo, man. All right, let's go back to sleep. That's when I know it's good.
Yeah. Well, so when you're having your nightmare, though, do you realize, do you recognize you're dreaming in the middle of the nightmare, or is it only after you wake up?
Yeah, I would say 75% of the time the answer is yes.
Okay.
25% of the time it goes into fresh zones, and it's not repeating itself. But when I'm, I would say that most of the time I know that I'm entertaining myself.
Yeah. Do you think dreams have anything to do with all these other things that we've talked about, aliens and demons?
And there are instances. Well, let me ask you that, because I do think that we can preload the mindset. You know, what I'm reading before bed, books on tape, or listening to something audible, or a podcast, or whatever. You know, some interview. I do that a lot. I very rarely sleep in silence. I can't do that. I can't. It's weird. My mind doesn't relax enough. Okay, so let's stay on the subject, PhD dude. Let's stay on the subject. And I'm not saying that in a cavalier way. I really mean this. I don't have letters after my name. In that, I after the show, I end the show, and at about 10 o'clock, I'm winding down, but my brain is too active, right? I can't slow it down. And if I don't distract myself, if I try to go to sleep in silence, my brain is too active. I can't fall asleep.
Yeah.
I have to have something else take me off of, right? Okay. Am I making
I mean, I've experienced that before, right? I mean, it kind of depends what I have going on, but sure, there's been times where I feel tired, I lay down, and yeah, you just can't turn your mind off. And it helps to have something on in the background, to have something else going on that does distract you from that.
Okay, now here's the extreme. About a year ago, somebody sent me these files, an app of sounds to listen to during sleep. And one of them was a thunderstorm.
Sure.
Okay.
I do that. So I listen to thunderstorm. Yeah.
Dude, the craziest dreams I ever had in my life. I woke up. I was like, I got to turn this off. Oh my God. What it caused, it was the exact opposite, man. I had to go back and listen to Creepypasta.
But not nightmare. It didn't give you nightmares. It gave you something else.
Creepypasta was cool compared to
no. The thunderstorms. They didn't give you nightmares. It did.
It did. It was insane. It was insane. It was. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so why is it that nightmares happen?
Well, I mean, I think you have to step back and ask, why do dreams happen? I mean, that's, again, something that, when I asked you, do you think dreams are related to any of these things? I mean, I asked that in part because we don't really know what dreams are for. We don't know why we have them. And people have had their, cultures have had their own explanations for dreams for forever, right? And these vary really widely, right? I mean, there's some people who think, like some cultures who think that when you dream, you're actually going to a physical place and you're there with the other dreaming souls of the people in your group, and there's monsters and demons and other kinds of things there. There's people who think dreams can tell you the future, right? This happened in I talk about this in my book with Joseph and the Pharaoh, and he read the Pharaoh's dreams, and that made him really powerful, right? Because he had the power to read dreams and understand dreams. There's an interesting, I think, evolutionary theory for dreaming that I think is pretty plausible, which is the first dreams were probably nightmares. The first dreams, the first time that we started to dream about things, we were probably having nightmares, probably dreaming about threats. And the reason for that is that dreaming is a really neurologically complex thing, right? So when you're dreaming, you're having a real dream. It's bizarre, there's a lot of weird elements. Things don't always match up. There's some violation of physics and how we understand it, but there is a story, and there's not just a story. There's an audio visual story, right? It's almost like having a movie going in your mind, like a David Lynch film going on in your mind. And there's actually parts of your brain that shut off connections to your body to prevent you from getting up and acting out your dream. Right? This is what people who sleepwalk have problems with. They actually have those parts are not turned off, so they get up and they walk around and they do things, right? And you can do studies with this. There have been studies with cats, for example, where they sever that part of the brain that disconnects the motor movements when you're asleep. And what do the cats do? Well, they get up and they act out typically defensive behaviors. They're having nightmares. And so dreaming is a really, really neurologically complex thing, which means it probably doesn't happen by accident. It's not just like a random firing of neurons in your brain as you sleep. It seems like it has kind of a purpose, right? It has anytime you see in nature, if you see something that looks like it's serving, if it's complex, it looks like it's doing something, it's usually a good idea to ask, could that have a function, right? Could it be doing something for the survival of the species, for the reproduction survival of the species, right? Is it evolutionarily important? And with dreaming, you need a really good, compelling evolutionary reason why the brain would fire realistic simulations of scenarios, right? And one reason it might do that is that if you're sleeping and you can sort of mentally and even physiologically rehearse danger, it's like morbid curiosity in your sleep, right? If you can do that while you sleep, that's a really efficient way to learn how to prepare yourself for danger, for crazy situations that you've never experienced. To have your body, those signals are still being sent to your muscles. They're just kind of blocked, right? But you're practicing, your brain's practicing sending those signals for fight or flight. It's just blocked off because it would be dangerous for you to get up and run around in your sleep. And so the theory goes that, well, maybe the original sort of machinery for dreaming came about because people who had nightmares, people who dreamed about threats, were actually able to survive a bit better in the real world, right? And so that kind of machinery stuck around, got passed on, and then it got co-opted later for all kinds of things. So now we can dream about all sorts of things. But the original machinery, the reason it was laid down, so this theory goes, is that it helped us rehearse threats. It helped us kind of be morbidly curious in our sleep.
You're right about that. To understand the struggle, right? That's what life is, right? You have to figure that out, and that's always not. I'm not a dream analyst, but I would say that by and large, most dreams, you're struggling. You're trying to solve something.
Well, there's some kind of problem presented to you,
some
right?
kind of problem, right? Yeah, some kind of struggle, and
it's a lot like a story. There's some kind of problem presented to you.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But here's the other tie-in for that. Let me ask you this: is the dream state real? Are we just accessing another dimension and another reality where we are living out an alternative version of this reality? Where and the reason why I think that is evident is time doesn't operate the same in a dream as it does in reality.
It's true. Yeah, it feels like it goes by in a few minutes.
Right. You're asleep for 6 hours or whatever, 8 hours, but in your dream, you've dreamed weeks.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? Where it's impossible for all of that dialogue to happen in real time, and you wake up. And so that's why it suggests to me that it's just as real as this reality, except for in this one, our eyes are open. The other one, our eyes are closed.
So if that was the case, how would you make sense? So some people dream more than others, right? Some people are just vivid every night, have dreams. Some people almost never have dreams. So how would that square with that? Like, what about the people who don't dream much, or the people who do dream?
I don't believe the people that say they don't dream.
Okay, what do you think it is?
They don't remember that they dreamed.
Okay, why would they not remember that? Assuming they have a normal memory, like in
right. Or it could be denial. That's the other part. Maybe some people don't want to be a part of the group, and they want to be different. And so everybody is talking about their dreams, and they want to stand out, and they say, well, I don't dream. Oh, no shit, you don't dream? So that makes them important.
Yeah, that's fair.
But no, I think everybody dreams. I do. Okay. I've got to keep this really short because it's complex. Okay. But I had a dream where I wrote my autobiography. Okay. Very vivid. Started off page 1. So I was born in, right. Okay. And wrote the 500-page book and ended at the end with.
So wait, in your dream,
In my dream,
it lasted long enough that you wrote this whole.
That's my point. And I woke up in the morning and I remembered all of it. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I wake up.
I have never had a dream like that. That's wild to me.
Yeah. I'm telling you. I talked about this a lot. So I woke up in the morning, so the end, right? My eyes open. I was like, wow. I got to remember that because that was a pretty good book, right? Okay, yeah. I remember, and then I caught myself. Colton, I'm not kidding. I was like, how is that possible?
Yeah.
3 months worth of writing a book in one dream.
Yeah.
That's where the time element does not apply. I don't know why that is.
So do you normally have long dreams? Like your dreams are really long in the dream world? They're like extended?
I would say that it's the same thing with all of us. We could probably look in the chat room and see that everybody is, not everybody, but most would agree with that. Where I've had, don't want to get into dream analysis, but whatever the dream is, where I'm on a journey, I've got to go through, and I'm with some friends, and I'm trying to get backstage to see Guns N' Roses playing on stage because they're friends of mine. I haven't seen them in a while, and so it's this days-long struggle of me trying to navigate this thing so I can get to the stage, and of course I don't, and they never play. Whatever, but that is not. It's days worth of dreaming in our reality, right? It's
yeah. I've never experienced that. I've never had. Mine are the opposite. Like my dreams. Yeah, my dreams are. So I don't often remember my dreams. I kind of do presume that most people dream most of the time and don't. But I actually don't remember a lot of my dreams. I can go.
What about nightmares? Do you remember your nightmares? The scary stuff?
Well, it's hard to say because if I don't remember the ones that I just know that there are times where I could go weeks without. I'll wake up and I don't remember having a dream, weeks at a time. And then there are times where I'll have dreams.
You're just trying to be special, Colton.
I'm really not. So that's why it's super interesting to me that not only do you have really vivid dreams, but you also. I guess they're longer in the dream. I'd never heard anybody say that they're longer in the dream world than they are like in the amount of time that you possibly could have, right? Like you're spending weeks writing this book in the dream world, but you're only asleep, 5 to 8 hours. I've never heard that. That's really interesting, actually. Sounds to me like you're the one trying to be special because I've never heard that.
Yeah. Totally. No, I think I'm the norm.
You think so? I guess I haven't talked to a lot of people about their dreams, right? I haven't I'm not a psychoanalysis person at all. So I don't, outside of, and because I don't remember my dreams a lot, I guess I just don't talk about dreams a lot with people. But
but you brought up David Lynch, and he's a really, really good example. Hieronymus Bosch, for example, or some of these artists, sculptors, painters, musicians, screenwriters, directors. These artists are remember their dreams, and they're cheating. They're cheating. They present it to us as this amazing literary content. Yeah. Oh, it just came to me. Yeah.
Well, I have a chapter in my book on dreams, and it was really fun for me to learn about again because I didn't think about dreams a lot. I have never done research myself on dreams, right? And so I started looking into, okay, where have people said that dreams inspired them, right? Like where have people said, because my whole point of this chapter is that dreams can be useful, right? Dreams, historically at least, evolutionarily, bad dreams, and even in modern times, bad dreams can maybe teach you something. And so I was just looking for like pop culture examples of, where have people learned something from a dream and then applied that in the real world? And I came across so many, like really in all kinds of areas, from art to science to literature to whatever. I mean, so some of these, like this guy, Auguste Kekule, he's famous for discovering the molecular structure of something called benzene. And we use it in all sorts of manufacturing, right? And he had this dream of a snake eating its tail, and when he woke up, he was just like, "Oh,
Yep.
benzene is a cycle, right? Like it's a circle." And so, or hexagon, I think. Anyways, he had the structure had popped up in his mind. He immediately knew what it meant. And then you have Paul McCartney with the song "Yesterday," right? Came to him in a dream. He woke up and wrote it down, right? Mary Shelley, Frankenstein. Frankenstein came to her in a waking dream, right? This idea that a man reanimated a corpse, and then that became her best-selling novel.
The song "Satisfaction" by the Rolling Stones.
Satisfaction, yeah. There's just all these examples, especially among creative people, of almost like epiphanies just coming to them in dreams, or these great compositions in the case of musicians.
Oppenheimer. you know what I mean? Oppenheimer.
Great scientists, like great theoretical scientists, like get this inspiration from dreams. And so that was super interesting to me when I was writing that chapter, because I didn't know about any of these things, right? Again, I was kind of new to dreams. I hadn't really done much research on them, and I was just looking for fun examples for people to read about to make the point that dreams could be useful.
Right.
And I came across more than I could put in the book, more than I could put in the chapter, and I had to kind of pick and choose. So I'm super intrigued by dreams, but I just feel like I don't have a lot of experience with them.
Some people have the ability, the sense, the sense of mind, to remember and to write it down and to save it for later. David Lynch, man, when you watch a David Lynch film, and or Steve,
it's
what
just
I mean?
a dream. It's a word for word reenactment
all
of a
it
dream
is.
he had, a crazy dream he had.
That's it. And he got paid. To but look at Dali. I brought up Hieronymus Bosch, or some of those surrealist artists of any. You can go back to the Renaissance and before, and it doesn't have to be a modern artist, but you look at that and you go, man, wow. Well, that obviously that is somebody, and when you look at a bowl of fruit and you paint that, nobody gives a crap. Anybody could paint that, right?
Yeah.
When you do something else that is from the imagination, that isn't part of our fixed reality around us, that's what catches people as
that's what Dali was so,
Dali was a master at that.
He painted normal things that were just existing abnormally, right? They existing like they were in a dream world, right? Or like they would exist in a dream.
Did you watch we're talking about horror and morbid curiosity. Did you watch Rick and Morty, the original? Okay. Rick and Morty is an excellent example of what we're talking about.
Okay.
Completely removed from our reality at the twist of just right instantly.
Right.
And I think that is one of the reasons why it was so appealing. You had the science aspect to it, which was great. Fast-paced dialogue. You had all of the stuff. You're into production and entertainment. One of the things that made Rick and Morty so brilliant was its references to script writing, and if something tracks, right? That tracks.
It kind of broke the fourth wall a little bit, right?
Yeah, 100%. But it was its ability to jump into literally another dimension really fast. That is not the norm. That's not a bowl of fruit. That's not something that's expected. It's the unexpected. And that was the draw for Rick and Morty for me.
Yeah, I think especially like you never knew what an episode was going to be about, right? I mean, it could be about anything, and usually not something you were expecting.
Is there? I want you to speak directly to the audience. Look into the camera. Speak to the audience. Is there somebody that is chemically attracted to this? Is there something that in somebody's personality that attracts them? Are some more attracted than others to morbid and creepy and fear-based stuff?
The answer would be yes. There has to be, right? So again, So everything is physics in the same way that everything is biology, right? Everything is physics because everything is made of atoms, right? And obeys the laws, some laws of physics, right? Some laws that we understand, some we don't yet, but they obey some kind of natural laws. At a higher, more abstract level, everything is chemistry. Everything obeys the laws of chemistry, and everything are molecules interacting with one another. At another abstract level, the one you just asked about, for living things, everything is biology, right? Like everything we do is influenced by, produced by, or mediated by, as you said, like chemicals in the brain or chemicals in your body. Like everything is influenced by biology. It doesn't mean that the environment doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that your personality doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that your thoughts don't matter. It just means that for any of those things to exist, they have to exist in a kind of a biological substrate. So yeah, there would be some kind of difference between people who are really morbidly curious and people who aren't. Now, what is that? I actually don't know. I don't think anyone does. There's some ideas about what it could be. We have kind of a sense of what some of those things might be. Like maybe you you have more of a certain kind of receptor that receives chemicals related to stress, or you have more of a certain kind of receptor that like a dopamine receptor that makes you more curious. You feel more rewarded when you seek out your curiosity or indulge your curiosity. So all of those things, like your curiosity about things that are dangerous, those are mediated by different chemicals: dopamine, cortisol, adrenaline. And so, yeah, there are going to be differences in how people produce those chemicals, how many they produce, when they produce them, how many receptors you have to actually.
Can you get all of that from a movie like You've Got Mail? It doesn't have to be Friday the 13th.
Yeah, sure. Anything can affect those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are so, this. You've talked to probably hundreds of people on your shows, right? Thousands of people. People are all different, a little bit different, right? They all have slightly different tendencies. They all have slightly different assumptions about the world. They all respond to things differently, and all of that is based in biology, right? All of that is based in or mediated by some kind of biology. So yeah, people's biology does influence how morbidly curious they are.
Yeah, I had heard that Jeffrey Dahmer watched You Got Mail over and over again. Yeah, on loop.
No, maybe he did. I don't know. He had a lot of things going on, but he also watched The Exorcist 3. That was like his thing.
Yeah,
The Exorcist 3, which is such a bizarre sequel to choose to watch.
Such a crap.
Films. Well, it's like,
he's got no taste in
that was the worst thing. His victims are sitting there and he's making them watch The Exorcist 3 over and over again, and that
well, it's better than Jaws 3 probably. Or House Party 3 was pretty bad too. That would be torturous. I saved the best for last, so let's squeeze this in. You're a biologist. Mm-hmm. All right. Consciousness. Mm-hmm. Is it physical or non-physical?
Well, let me ask you this so that I can answer it. If it was non-physical, what does that mean? What would that look like, or what does that mean for it to be non-physical?
Well, none of us really have that answer, but I would say, in a general sense, that consciousness exists first outside of our bodies. It's not created from a chemical reaction inside of us.
Okay. Is it created by physics? Is it created by?
I'm asking you. You're the biologist. Is it a chemical reaction?
Well, first you asked, is it physical? So I guess I would say, to me, anything that exists is physical. Even if ghosts exist, they would have to be physical.
Okay, man, I love your pragmatic style. You are so black and white. So I'm gonna get inside. I'm gonna play the psychiatrist.
All right.
Is this when sperm meets the egg?
And
when
things
start to happen?
Yeah.
Is consciousness created because of that, or is consciousness already existing before the sperm meets the egg?
That's a better way to ask it. It's a more precise way.
I'm understanding you more, Colton.
I think I would go with the boring answer that it probably is based on what I know about the world. Probably it's comes about after that. You need some kind of substrate. You got to have some kind of substrate there to create it. Just like you have to have a substrate for an electrical board or to send signals to something to create the video I'm seeing on my screen, right? I guess I don't know. I'm open to the idea that it could be something else, but I don't know what that would look like. I don't have a good frame of reference for how that would work, you know? So I could say, like, yes, I'm open to this idea that consciousness could exist before a new life
Us.
exists,
Right.
but
Right.
I don't know. Okay, well, it exists. So if you're saying it exists, well, it must exist somewhere, right? It must exist in the world somewhere. So if it exists in the world, it's got to have some kind of physical. That's why the word physical was throwing me off. I was thinking, well, even if it has nothing to do with life, it's got to have a thing that makes it exist, right? It's got to have a material that it exists on or in or with. And so I guess it could, but I don't know what that would be. I don't have a good
Yeah. And
theory for what that would be.
I don't know, but I suspect that the universe in its interconnected ways
Mhm.
is supported by, I think it's consciousness, dark
Okay.
energy and dark matter, and these things that we don't understand that make the
Yeah.
algorithms work, and we're trying to
Yeah.
figure that. I think that just may
That's
be
consciousness?
consciousness. It could be, and I just
So, like, the universe experiencing itself, right? I mean, you hear that phrase with humans, right? Humans are I think it's a great saying. So the humans are the universe experiencing itself. That's such a cool way to think about consciousness to me.
it's
Uh,
Occam's razor. If you think about it, it's a very simple way to
yeah,
look at
well,
and
so do you think animals have consciousness in the same way that we do? Is it the same kind of consciousness?
the short answer is yes.
Okay.
I would say
The
the short
same
answer
same
is that
basic
you
thing.
look into a dog's eyes or a chimpanzee's
Mhm.
eyes, and you tell me that they aren't
Yeah.
going, man, what the fuck, right? You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
What about a
You know,
grasshopper's eyes? I mean, does the grasshopper have
I,
it, right?
I would say yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I
like
would
some
say
kind
so.
of so then consciousness is what, like an awareness that things are happening? Is that the would be like your working definition
Some
of
would
it there?
some would say, it's some kind of sentience,
Okay.
and logic that would have to come into play, and I would say that part is true.
Okay.
But there is if consciousness didn't exist outside of the body,
Mhm.
then all of us would be the same. We
Mhm.
wouldn't have, you know, I like chocolate ice cream, you like vanilla, instead of both
Mhm.
of us only liking, you know what I mean? There are things
Mhm.
that make me who I am and
Uh-huh.
who you are, but yet we are made from the same exact particles.
So
You
why
know,
does the
what
consciousness change? Why does that
that's why
change?
that's why I think it comes from the outside.
Mhm.
You and I are molecules, man,
Oh,
identical.
yeah. Yeah.
It's so what makes you you and me?
Yeah.
Why do I have guitars hanging on my wall and you have uh, a thing for beakers? You, you,
Uh,
you know
yeah,
what
I
I mean?
mean, yeah. I mean, I guess I would have to know. Okay, so let's say it comes from the outside world, or it comes from the outside of life. Why would it respond? Why would my brain respond differently to absorbing this consciousness than yours? What makes it different still?
And I don't even think the Dalai Lama has those answers. You know, but he may be closer to it.
You may be closer than
That
either of us.
yeah. But okay, so you said this earlier, and then we'll wrap on this.
Mhm.
The very basic questions that we all seek answers to: what happens after we die? Are we
Mhm.
alone in the universe? Why are we here? Right?
Yeah,
It's like those three, and
yeah. That's the big one.
we really don't have
We still don't know.
to any of the three, and
Yeah.
that's the crazy part. So, what do we continue after we die? I've died a lot. I have. That's another show for another time. But I got really sick and I was in a coma for 4 days, and I had, I was resuscitated a lot. And it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was a pretty cool experience.
Did you feel like you went somewhere? Did you feel like you went somewhere else that was different from your dreams, or did it feel like a dream?
I didn't shut down. I can tell you that.
Okay.
I didn't shut down. And so that experience, again, another show for another time. I would love to talk to you about it. But it was very strange. It was a very strange thing. It was, I didn't shut off.
Well, again, that's the kind of experience we talked about, shifting worldviews. I mean, that's the kind of experience that can shift your worldview on what's possible, right? On what is really out there.
Well, one of the things, go to the Boltzmann's brain or some of these other ideas that physics is presenting to us today. And one of them is that thinking and thought is always happening. It will never go away.
That's why you can't sleep at night.
Yeah, no, I'm saying out there, when all is done, the earth is just a big lump of coal this big, and we are gone. What is existing out there are clouds of thought and thinking.
So is that the consciousness? Is that
that's physics' way of saying consciousness without saying consciousness? They don't want to say the C word.
Yeah.
But could that be? The last remnants of everything before the next big bang are clouds of thought and thinking that needs energy. It's entropy playing itself out. So it's going to go around and try to consume little pieces of surviving energy to feed itself so thinking can continue. And is that consciousness? Is that the soul? I don't know, but physics says it is so.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about the people that are going to be the most open to world shattering ideas are theoretical physicists, right? Because they're seeing for themselves, like they're seeing it, that the world is way weirder than we thought it was.
Yeah. It's so weird. Yeah. When we say things like, I'm going to say thank you for a great conversation, but the chicken or the egg, what came first? Yeah. And when it comes to consciousness and where we start, we're two things that combine, and then suddenly I'm, Jimmy Church and you're Coltan Scrivner, and how we develop these. Look at kids in the classroom, in kindergarten, how they're all different.
Yeah.
They're not the same, but yet we come from the same stardust, if you will. So
what about twins? We don't have to go into it, but you should think about twins. What about identical twins?
Yeah, I know. But you just answered my question. That's a perfect example. That's a perfect example. Why wouldn't they absolutely be dead nuts the same?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and they're not. They're super similar.
Super similar. You might not be able to tell them apart until they open their mouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? All right. So when's the new book come out?
October 7th.
October 7th. So Amazon, your website?
Anywhere you buy books. And so Barnes & Noble or Amazon or local bookstore, wherever, it should be there. And I will have a book tour. I'll actually be in LA for about a week just before Halloween.
Yeah, let us know. Let my producer know, Michelle.
For sure.
And before, 3-Eye Atlas, the alien spaceship, is going to reveal itself at that time. Are you familiar with that?
No, I hope it doesn't interfere with my book tour.
Right now,
okay.
The third interstellar object ever in our star system entered our star system last year.
Okay.
It traveling at 150,000 miles per hour, faster than anything has ever been measured in our star system. It just went past Earth. It went out at elliptical orbit with us on the orbited plane around the sun, and is now on Halloween, right? Next month.
Yeah.
It is going to October 29th and 30th pop out from the other side of the sun. And we are measuring it right now with every single telescope and instrument that we have. There are some physicists out there, like Avi Loeb from Harvard, that think it's an alien spaceship.
Yeah. Huh.
And so it's going to make its appearance of all things, man. Halloween next
That's
month.
the time to do it. If I was an alien, that's when I would make my appearance on Halloween.
So let me know. Reach out to Michelle, and I'll come out and say hello. All right?
Yeah. All right.
Colton, perfect show tonight. And I look forward to our next conversation. Just awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's fun.
Perfect night. Coltan Scrivner, everybody. And his websites are below, coltanscrivner.com. And we also have morbidlycuriousthoughts.com. That's the book. Book is out October 7th. The links are below. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I want to remind everybody tomorrow night, Ryan Bledsoe is here. It is going to be an amazing show. Tomorrow night, we're going to talk about his world and the Bledsoe family. So until tomorrow night, you know that all I've got is go Backley Tappy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go Backley Tappy.